Loves here, and today we're going to be looking at the main themes of chiptune, the main structures of chiptune. You may have, well, you probably already know some of the stuff, but maybe you've not sat down and really considered it. So there are three main types. So there's melodic bass. This is the one where the melody is the main idea and it's supported by a harmony. There is rhythmically based, where the rhythm is the main focus. So we have percussion all over the place. There might be some melody, but obviously it's not the focal point. It may occasionally become an area of interest, but it's not the main idea. And then we have the, I would call it, jam session piece. This is one where it's focused on chords and it's almost like a trance. It's to get you in the zone. It's not focused on melody or a complicated rhythm. And so most of the time, chiptune pieces will fall into, for video games, will fall into they'll start out as a melodic piece and they'll fall into a jam session piece. So because they want to be interesting, they want you to be engaged with the music and be compelling and unexpected. And that's what the melody will provide. But then they'll fade back. That way, when you get in the moment and the bad guys show up and you're beginning to fight them, they just, boom, they just start smoothing out in their jam session. They're not in your way, but man, they really support that role of whatever it is you're doing at that particular moment. That's the goal of the music. And so other pieces that are more for listening will generally be melodic or rhythmically based. So they're more intellectually interesting. You're like, oh, this is a curious thing going on here. So before you sit down to write a chiptune, you always got to ask yourself, what is the nature of the piece I want to write? And we talk about this also in the approach to beat writing series. So here I'm going to play a piece for you and I want you to decide. It's going to be a little unfair because I'm not going to play the whole thing for you, but I want you to decide what is this piece? What branch does it fall into? Just as a little exercise. And then we'll talk a little bit about the philosophy and going about doing those things, and then we'll be done. So here you go. So I'm going to stop it there. But from that, I'm going to collect that this from you. I hope you determined that it was a melodic based piece. Obviously, the melody is moving all over the place. There's a couple spots where we reach a jam session, but for the most part, it's melodic based. And so that's just the nature of this piece. It's not super melodic based. There's still large elements of groove and rhythm. And so it still works sort of as a mix, but it definitely fits into that category. Other pieces you may listen to may just fit very, very well into the others. That's why they're the main categories. And then, of course, there are mixes all across. So the point of this is just when you sit down to write a piece, pick out what it is you want to do. Do you want to write a killer melody? Do you want to write something that's a little strange, weird, has some unusual harmonic moves? Do you want to write some interesting rhythms? Do you want to do a mix of those? Are you writing for a game? You know, whatever it is you're going to do, sit down and come up with a theme of what it is and then write it out. In fact, I'd like you to share whatever it is you make down in the comments. I think that'd be really cool. But those are the main ideas. And so these are just things to keep in the background when you're working. They're handy concepts to have because every now and then you might get stuck. And if you get stuck, just sit back and say, what was my goal with this piece? And then you say, oh, well, I wanted to write a melodic piece. And you say, well, where does my melody break down? Or does it finish right here? And then should I continue on with a new section? And sometimes that can be hard. If you write out a melody, like, for example, I wrote out these lines obviously first. Then I'm like, I knew I wanted to go into a jam session next. I wanted to develop it there. But after the jam session, it's like, what do you do? Eventually you get to a point where like, what do you do? And then you have to just decide, I'm going to write a completely new thing. And a lot of people, because you're working on the computer and we have this copy paste stuff, you'll just start copy paste, and it's just a detriment to your ability to compose. Back in the day, you had to write out every freaking note. So you wanted every note to count. And so their songs were more meaningful because it wasn't as simple as just Control C, Control V. It was like, I want this to do this specific thing, and I'm going to go. If you wanted to repeat, that was like a freaking ton of work. So sometimes it'd be like, I'm just going to write a new thing. It'd be easier to do a new thing. And then as you develop, away you go. And so, anyways, that's my advice if you get stuck, because I know those are just common problems that people face. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe, support me on Patreon, and have a blessed day.